Hello, I'm Jude and I'm going to talk about the paper I wrote with Andrew Skourdoumbis, Legitimating Measurement in the Audit Culture. What prompted the inquiry behind this paper is the pervasiveness of simple numbers used as measurement devices of human performance or worth in current times. The audit culture within the Academy is taken as an illustration of this in the paper. The English Research Assessment Framework is used as an example where the numbers 1 to 4 are used to connote scholarly worth, such that management can say to an academic staff member without irony, you score 2 out of a possible 4 as a scholar. Another example is the coloured traffic lights that are in use in some prestigious Australian universities, where the colours of traffic lights are used to measure and communicate scholarly worth. There's many genealogical traces of measurement devices within neoliberal governance regimes. The one presented in this paper has to do with the military history of mathematics, specifically West Point Military Academy in the United States, and we're looking at the early 19th century. West Point trains soldier engineers with a heavy focus on mathematics, of course, as there is in engineering nowadays, there was then. Just to quote, by 1818, West Point cadets were taking the equivalent of 100 credit hours in mathematics. The General Regulations and Orders for the Army in 1821 specified that cadets study mathematics from sunrise to 7 a.m, attend maths class from 8 to 11, study from 11 to noon, and again from 1/2 hour past sunset to 9:30 p.m, 6 days per week. What interests us particularly is the pedagogical practices that were put into play at West Point in the early 1800s. These were surveillance, rule following, obedience, such that failure to complete an assignment was a military default, competition, testing, public ranking, demotion, and dismissal. Cadets were graded daily and moved from section to section each month so that their status in terms of mathematics achievement was publicly known. Now, 2 points link this history to current times. The first is the Industrial Revolution and the sudden explosion of the need for the training of engineers. The universities at the time were focusing on training students in the classics, and they didn't have the staff to teach mathematics and engineering courses. So at this time, we find a considerable movement of West Point military engineers to positions as public educators in mathematics and engineering in elite American universities. We also find in the 1860s, with the expansion of public high schools in the United States, West Point military staff very influential there in the setting up of public schools of streaming, tracking, or setting ability grouping in mathematics classes. They're also highly influential in the production of mathematics textbooks. Charles Davies, a West Point professor, had sold 7 million of his maths textbooks by 1875 and had dominated maths textbook writing in the 19th century. So our argument in the paper is that governance strategies of West Point Military Academy in the early 19th century appear in public schooling in mathematics in current times, and that by means of their training in the rigidities of school mathematics, through the practices of silence, surveillance, rule following, obedience, competition, testing, public ranking, demotion and dismissal, 21st century school students are rendered governable by audit regimes. Andrew will talk a little now about how modern forms of governance, in particular aspects of new public management, appropriate the military practices of school mathematics in sophisticated and subtle ways to monitor, measure and direct people.
Hi, my name's Andrew Skourdoumbis. I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about the paper that I co-authored with Jude called Who's Counting? Legitimating Measurement in the Audit Culture. Look, essentially the paper, amongst other things, is about the appropriation of the discipline of mathematics and how measurement by number is applied to people, and how modern forms of governance in this neoliberal age uses theory of number, measurement, rules to measure people and get people to do particular things. The paper was skewed towards the academy and academic work, and so one of the things that Jude is particularly interested in is looking at how theory of number, if you like, and measurement by number and the rules of numbers are used to measure academics' work in terms of, say, outputs, and even a term like outputs, inputs, which is very much the language of mathematics, if you like. And so how is that used to monitor, measure, and get people to do things? And I guess the other thing that I'd say is related to the paper is how aspects of new public management, for example, use mathematics, and quite basic, what may appear to be basic mathematics, but it's basic in terms of what it tries to do, but it's quite sophisticated and subtle in how it gets people to do certain things. And so I guess the paper, the mathematical bent of the paper, if you like, is very much skewed towards that kind of rule governing practices of mathematics that many mathematics teachers would be used to in their classrooms, and how that in a way gets appropriated and used on people to get them to act and do certain things.